8.4, the binomial theorem, day 2. What we're going to look at a little bit more is the numbers that we use as the coefficients when we expand binomials. And there was a little bit of this chart on page 603, and I want to explain to you where these numbers come from. This triangle was developed by Blaise Pascal, that's why it's called Pascal's triangle. And if you take any number in here, it comes from adding the 2 above it. So 10 is equal to 6 plus 4, 3 is equal to 1 plus 2, 6 is equal to 5 plus 1, 35 is equal to 15 plus 20, and so on. Now remember, the first row is the 0 row. So this is the 0 row, the first row, second row, third row, fourth row, etc. And the first term is called the 0 term. So this is the 0 term in the 0 row. This is the first row, the 0 term, the first term. This is the second row, 0 term, first term, second term, and so on and so forth. And so now you know how each row is generated, and these numbers should look familiar because they are what we're going to use as the coefficients as we expand the binomials. So this is the formula we're going to use. So like let's say we only wanted a specific term when we were expanding out a binomial. In this problem right here, we're going to expand a minus 2b raised to the 8th power. That means needs to be multiplied out 8 times, and we want the 6th term. That's what this is asking for. Now you could go through and do all that multiplying, but first of all, it'll take you a long time, and second of all, chances are you'll make a mistake. So this formula here is going to help us. So we're in the 8th row, so that's why n is equal to 8. Now r is equal to 5. Even though we're asking for the 6th term, remember that that first term is the 0 term. So we're just going to ignore that. So since we want the 6th term, we're going to have r equal 5. You just subtract 1. X is equal to a, so that's the first part of our binomial. And then y is going to equal negative 2b. That's the second part of our binomial. I'm just plugging all that into this expression right here. So here it is. So n is 8, r is 5, a is equal to a to the a minus 5, and then 2b all raised to the 5th power. This is actually negative 2b. So now 8 choose 5. I say choose. That's something I learned when I was in calculus, and I don't know if they use that anymore. You have two choices. You could either take your calculator and go NCR, and then you're going to have 8 comma 5. And that will give you the answer. Or you can actually use factorials. So if this is just 8 factorial over 8 minus 5 factorial times 5 factorial. And what we end up with is 8 factorial over 3 factorial times 5 factorial. And actually this 8 factorial up here is, I'm just going to erase this a little bit. So we're just going to actually make this. This is 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 factorial. And what happens is this one cancels this. 3 factorial is actually 3 times 2 times 1. And when you have that, 3 times 2 is equal to 6. So these cancel this, so this is just 56. Or again, you could just do this little piece on your calculator. This one was simple enough I didn't need a calculator, but some of these that I'm going to show you get a little bit larger, so it's perfectly fine to use your calculator. So we have 56 times a to the 3rd, and then we're going to have, you have to distribute this 5 to both terms here. So this becomes negative 32 b to the 5th. And now when we multiply all this together, so you have negative 32 times 56, a to the 3rd, b to the 5th, you end up getting negative 1,792 times a to the 3rd, b to the 5th. So this would be the 6th term. If you were to FOIL this out 8 times, you'd end up getting, for your 6th term, this is what you would have. This was faster, and you have a much better chance of getting the answer right. Okay, let's try another one. Now we want to find the 7th term and x minus 5 raised to the 6th. Well, first of all, n is equal to 6. We're in the 6th row. That comes from right here. That's your n. Now we want the 7th term. So r is going to be 1 less that. We want r is equal to 6. And then our first term in the binomial is x, and the second term in our binomial is negative 5. And let me write down the original formula for you. We have NCR, and then we have x raised to the n minus r times y to the r. So this becomes 6, choose 6, or 6c6, and then x to the 6 minus 6, and then y to the 6th power here. Now you can do this on your calculator, or you can do it by hand. It's simple enough. If you do it on your calculator, it's going to be 6 factorial over 6 minus 6 factorial times 6 factorial. So this is 6 factorial over 0 factorial over 6 factorial. These cancel. 0 factorial is really 1, so you have 1 over 1. And this ends up being, so these cancel out. They replace each other with 1s. 0 factorial is equal to 1. So now we have 1, and then x to the 6 minus 6, that's x to the 0. And then negative 5 to the 6th power. Anything to the 0 power is 1, so negative 5 to the 6th power, you end up with 15,625 is your answer. Okay, now let's add, we're going to add a little twist to this. Now we're just asking for the coefficient of the term in the expansion of the binomial. The difference is I want the term that says that has x to the 5th in it. I want to figure out what the coefficient is. So your first thought is, well, that's the 5th term. Well, actually it's not. Notice we're going, this is n is equal to 12. That part's easy. And x is equal to x, y is equal to 4. But this is not the 5th term. And that's because if we take, we're going to have x to the 12th. You're going to do this in descending order of exponents. You have x to the 12th, x to the 11th, x to the 10th, x to the 9th, x to the 8th, and so forth here. So notice what happens. So the first term is the 0 term, first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth, sixth. This is actually your 7th term. So r is equal to 7. I started with 0, so right away I could say r is equal to 7. So now if we multiply all this out, or if we put this into our formula, we're going to have 12c7, and then x to the 12 minus 7, and then we're going to have 4 raised to the 7th power. I'm just plugging it in. 12c7, I did that on my calculator because that's kind of a big number. It's 792 times x to the 5th times, just go like this, keep it separated, and then you have 4 to the 7th power, which turns out to be 16,384. And you type this into your calculator, you're going to end up with 12,976,128 x to the 5th. Now this is just asking for a, so all I really need is just the coefficient here. And that's your answer. Okay, let's take a look at our next one here. So same idea. Here we have n is equal to 8. X is going to be 2x. Y is going to be negative 3y. Now, we want the term that has x to the 4th, y to the 4th in it. So I'm just real quick go back just to show you we wanted ax to the 5th. This was x to the 5th. I just thought of that as I was starting the second problem here. Let me draw a line as well. So we have ax to the 4th, y to the 4th. So again, what we want is we want to go backwards here. So you have, this is going to be, you're going to have 2. We're not just going to ignore the 2 for right now. So we're going to have x to the 8th, x to the 7th, x to the 6th, x to the 5th, x to the 4th. So this is our 0 term, first term, second term, third term. What we want is the 4th term, so r is equal to 4. So now let's just plug this all in. So we have 10c6, and then we're going to end up with x times, or actually, go back here. Our x term is 2x. We're going to take 2x raised to the 4th power. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. This is not 10 and 6. Sorry about that. I was looking at my next problem here. This is actually 8 and 4. So my apologies. There we go. That's better. And then we have y to the 4th. Not y to the 4th. Our y is negative 3y. Okay, so this is negative 3y all raised to the 4th power. And then when you type this into your calculator, 8c4 turns out to be 210. And then you're going to end up, with 70. Multiplied, I got ahead of myself here. So this is 70 times 2x raised to the 4th power. So this becomes 16x to the 4th. Remember, you have to distribute the exponent. There's no plus here. So 2 gets raised to the 4th and x gets raised to the 4th. And then we have negative 3 raised to the 4th power, which is 81. And then y to the 4th. And then you put this all together, we get 90,720 x to the 4th, y to the fourth. But all we're interested in is the coefficient right here. Okay, so notice you raise negative 3 to the fourth power, not just the 3, and negative 3 raised to an even power is a positive number. Okay, so that's how that would work. I just have one more thing to show you, and this has a little bit of a twist to it because x isn't just x or 2x or 1x or 3x, it's x squared. So when you go to find the 8th term, you think, oh, well, I'll just go x to the 10th, x to the 9th, x to the 8th, etc. Well, actually, notice this is being raised to the 10th power. So we're going to have x squared raised to the 10th power, which is actually x to the 20th. And then we'll have x squared raised to the 9th power. Power to our power, remember you multiply. And then we're going to have x squared raised to the 8th. That's x to the 16th. And we need x to the 8th. So we're going to keep going until we have x squared raised to the 4th power, which would be x to the 8th. And so this is the 0 term, first term, second term. This is going to be our 4th term right here. This is going to be, because 0, 1, 2, 3, this is our 4th term. So r is equal to 4, because 0 term, first term, second term. So r is equal to 4, and we have n is equal to, 6th term. Sorry about that. This is going to be the 6th term right here. This is the 6th term. This is 0, first, second, and so forth. So r is equal to 6. And so now let's just type this in. So n is equal to 10. R is equal to 6, x is equal to x squared, and then y is equal to 7. So if we type this in, we end up with 10c6, and then we're going to have times x raised to the 10 minus 6 and minus r, and then times y to the 6, and then if I put in what x and y are, 10c6 turns out to be 210, and then x is really x squared, and this is raised to the 4th power, so you notice we're going to get x to the 8th, and then y is actually 7, so we're raising 7 to the 6th power, and you end up with a very large number. So this is going to be 117,649. You multiply all this good stuff together, you get 24,706,290 x to the 8th. And all we're interested in is the coefficient. Okay, so sorry for a couple of errors in here, but I did finish with everything corrected, and you should be good to go.